All right, folks, buckle up, because what we're diving into today is hands down one of the wildest country music stories of the year. We're talking about Zach Bryan and Gavin Adcock, two names you might not normally hear in the same sentence, but after this weekend, their feud is impossible to ignore. What started as a few sharp words online has blown up into a full-on confrontation, caught on camera and shared all across social media. If you've seen the clip, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Zach Bryan, fired up, yelling through a fence at Gavin Adcock and then literally climbing over it. Yeah, you heard that right. But before we get into the blow-by-blow of what went down at the Born and Raised Festival, let's rewind and piece together how this all started, because the backstory here is just as explosive as the confrontation itself. The roots of this feud go back to July 2025, right after Zach Bryan wrapped a massive three-night run at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. Coming off that high, fans were buzzing, but then a viral video surfaced from a 14-year-old fan. The kid had waited hours after the show, hoping for just a quick moment with Bryan, maybe a selfie or even a hello, but ended up leaving disappointed. In the clip, you could hear the frustration, and it quickly picked up traction online. Instead of ignoring it, Bryan fired back directly. He basically told the fan that after performing for over 2.5 hours, he wasn't obligated to stick around for pictures, and signed off with a sharp "Gom-D." That response didn't exactly land smoothly with everybody, and it opened the door for someone else to jump in, Gavin Adcock. Now, for anyone not super familiar with Gavin Adcock, he's a rising figure in the country scene, known for being outspoken and not afraid to stir the pot. And in this case, he did exactly that. Adcock took to social media and publicly questioned why an artist who has built so much of his reputation on being authentic and fan-focused would respond so harshly to a young supporter. He made it clear he thought Bryan's reaction was out of line, and in doing so, he hit on something that struck a nerve with fans. Was Zach Bryan's image as a man of the people starting to crack a little? The exchange lit up Twitter, or X as it's now called, and what could have been a small, forgettable dust-up was suddenly headline material. But Adcock didn't stop there. In August, during an appearance on Rolling Stone's Nashville Now podcast, he doubled down on his criticism. He accused Bryan of putting on a mask in his everyday life, suggesting that the version of Zach people see on stage and online isn't necessarily the real deal. He even hinted that behind the scenes, Bryan might not be as genuine or as good of a person as his public image suggests. That comment was like gasoline on the fire. Fans of Bryan came out swinging, defending their favorite artist, while others applauded Adcock for saying what they had suspected for a while. By this point, the tension between the two wasn't just a spat, it was a storyline, and people were waiting to see if it would ever spill into real life. Fast forward to September 13th at the Born and Raised Festival in Pryor, Oklahoma, and that's exactly what happened. This festival was already a big deal. It's Zach Bryan's home turf, and it draws huge crowds every year. Bryan wasn't officially on the lineup, but made a surprise guest appearance during Gabriella Rose's set, which sent fans into a frenzy. Meanwhile, Gavin Adcock was set to headline later that night, meaning both artists ended up backstage in close quarters. Anyone could have guessed this wasn't the best setup given their history, and sure enough, tensions boiled over fast. Phones were out, cameras were rolling, and what unfolded quickly became the centerpiece of country music gossip for the weekend. The video that's been circulating online shows the moment things hit a breaking point. Zach Bryan is on one side of a metal fence, visibly upset, yelling at Gavin Adcock to open the gate and fight like a man. On the other side, Adcock is standing still, arms crossed, not saying much, but clearly holding his ground. You can see Bryan shoving at the fence, raising his voice, and eventually climbing up and over it in an attempt to reach Adcock. Security immediately intervened. But the scene was chaotic. The crowd that gathered backstage got more than they bargained for. And thanks to social media, the whole world got a front row seat to the drama. In the hours that followed, Gavin Adcock leaned into the moment. He reposted the video with a caption aimed squarely at Bryan, calling him Zach Bryan and mocking his behavior. He even added, "Eat a Snickers, bro," suggesting Bryan was acting irrationally. Later, he went further, claiming that Bryan was absolutely wasted during the confrontation. Whether that's true or not, it added another layer of controversy. Bryan, on the other hand, stayed silent, not addressing the incident directly in the aftermath. That silence has only fueled speculation about where his head is at and how he plans to move forward after being seen in such a volatile state. The fan reaction has been completely divided, which isn't surprising given how passionate country audiences can be. On one side, you've got people calling out Zach Bryan for losing his cool and letting things escalate to the point of almost throwing punches. They argue that climbing over a fence isn't just unprofessional, it's reckless. On the flip side, some fans think Gavin Adcock was the instigator, purposely pushing Bryan's buttons and then sitting back while security kept him protected. In that view, Adcock came off as someone using the moment to boost his own visibility, knowing full well the cameras were rolling. Both narratives have gained traction online, and it's created a real split in the country music community. One important point here is that this doesn't look like a staged publicity stunt. The emotions on Bryan's face, the intensity of his words, and the body language of everyone involved suggest this was as real as it gets. Sure, the feud is giving both artists plenty of attention, but this wasn't a choreographed PR move. If anything, it shows just how personal this has become. Country music has had its fair share of rivalries over the years, but this one feels different because of how raw and unfiltered it played out in real time. In an era where every moment is captured on iPhones and instantly uploaded to Instagram stories, nothing stays behind closed doors anymore. Not even a tense, fence-side confrontation like this. So where does this all go from here? That's the million-dollar question. Feuds like this can either burn out quickly or turn into long-running sagas that define an artist's career. Right now, Bryan hasn't said anything publicly, and Adcock seems content to let his posts speak for themselves. Whether the two bury the hatchet or let this spark keep burning, one thing's for sure, fans are watching closely. And in the world of music, moments like this can either damage a reputation or make it larger than life. For now, the Zach Bryan-Gavin Adcock feud stands as one of the most talked about stories in country music this year. And it's a reminder that when egos clash, the stage isn't the only place where sparks fly.